Dave and I had been married for about 4 years when we decided it was time to expand our little family. I met Dave during a deposition at the health insurance company I worked for, where he was the lead plaintiff's attorney, and I was one of the 6 defending a vulnerable position. Dave was and remains a brilliant partnership-ready lawyer destined to make millions in the fight for justice. Although I am a competent lawyer, I would not claim to be of his class, and was therefore surprised to hear from him shortly after the claim was granted. However, what he needed was not my legal help, but something more carnal, and over the course of numerous dinners, drinks, dances, and events, I discovered that he was a witty and charming conversationalist. The sex was everything we could want. Dave is an inventive and attentive lover, and I was blessed with a passionate and responsive body. Then came the wedding, and we settled into one of those ubiquitous gated communities that seem to grow like weeds all over Long Island for the wealthy. At least those with a few million on a 4-bedroom ranch that's too small for the price and too big for the 2 of us. But we have room to grow, and we have room for an au pair in case I want to go back to work. Like many privileged couples, we were living the American dream, with more money than a young couple could hope for, and at times it seemed like the only problem we had was Dave's hours of work. Although we are both lawyers, my job is more of a 9-to-5 office job, while he spent a lot of time pursuing an almighty partnership. So I often find myself attending the endless meetings, barbecues, dinners, wine tastings, and neighborhood gatherings that living in a gated community entails. It was through these many meetings that I became friends with Joanna and, by extension, with her husband Walter. This couple intrigued me, and since I had free time and in the last month of pregnancy I took a vacation, I decided to find out everything I could. No, I didn't hire a private detective or delve into their personal lives. I just struck up a friendship with Joanna, since she doesn't work, and life's just 2 doors down from use. I was intrigued, but not to the point of madness. There was a mystery there, but not one that I desperately needed to solve. Walter, as I understand it, is a certified auditor. He has his own small company. It's strange, but unlike other self-employed entrepreneurs, he never looks for new clients or tries to make contacts. He looks like an accountant in his 40s, balding, with a potbelly, but not fat. He doesn't look like an athlete, just a bookish, nerdy type of man, about 5'3", and often has a slightly aloof or confused demeanor. He never seems to quite fit in with the guys, doesn't play golf, doesn't fish, doesn't drink, doesn't seem to be the stereotypical alpha male that infests our little community. In addition, oddly enough for a married man, he is slightly shy when interacting with women. Always polite, always a gentleman, but without showing off, he mostly blends in with those around him. Joanna, on the other hand, is beautiful, lively, energetic, flirtatious, about 30 years old, but she looks younger, and she is completely devoted to Walter. She has a smile that would put the Mona Lisa to shame, a body, despite having 2 children, that even on my best day I could not hope to compare with, breasts the size of a small pineapple, perhaps enlarged, and a mysterious sultriness that just screams sex. I've only seen her get angry twice, once when some men made fun of Walter in her presence, and she verbally reprimanded them so that they ran away with their tails between their legs, and another time when one of the local ladies' men tried to assault her with your tricks. I think he was happy that his testicles were still intact, but she made it clear loudly and openly that if he or anyone else tried to do such a thing, they could not avoid it. What she has is exclusively for Walter and no one else. She has a noticeable, sometimes sickening, crush on Walter, and it's obvious to all of us except, strangely, Walter himself, who seems oblivious to it all. He clearly loves her, treats her wonderfully and with respect, seems completely devoted to her, but is boring enough to not notice the clues that everyone else sees. Or maybe, having lived with it for so long, he just accepted it as natural. Like I said, they live 2 doors down from here, so they have money to live here, but they don't seem to have the toys that are so widely displayed by the rest of the neighborhood. The cars are devoid of zest, nothing fancy. There are no boats in the yard, no 6-foot televisions, no man's dens with mahogany bars that others boast about. They have a nice yard with a pool, a regular-sized barbecue like most houses here, but nothing fancy. I never heard her complain about not having enough money, but she wasn't into the latest fashion trends either. She didn't wear much jewelry, a modest but decent wedding ring, a gold wedding ring, and the usual gold earrings that looked like two small cylinders. I think they have money for toys, but there is no need to compete by showing them off on display. They have 2 children, a 6-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. Both are little souls, well-behaved, and their father and mother clearly take care of them. They are looked after by a Latina girl, something like a maid and nanny, as well as Joan, who was a stay-at-home mom. But even in this, they are completely normal. As I understand it, my son attends one of the best private schools in the area, but nothing special, because he is only 6 years old. Mom takes him to school and picks him up afterwards, while his father is at work and the nanny looks after the baby. By that time, I was 8 months pregnant and took a leave of absence from work. I was used to walking every morning to get some exercise, although I stayed quite close to the house, so I went out early when I saw Joan dropping her son off at school. We chatted for a bit, and I invited her to have coffee with me after returning home. She had a busy morning planned, taking her son, going to the gym, then shopping, but she promised to come by lunchtime to drink coffee and chat. I knew there was something between them, some story just waiting to be told, but I didn't expect to receive it that day. I was mistaken. Joanna was a little late. We were sitting drinking coffee and chatting about pregnancy and children in general when I asked her if she planned to have more children. It all depends on Walter, as he says. So it will be. If he wants more, we will give birth. If not, no. I noticed that as she spoke, she was twirling her small gold earring with her fingers, a nervous habit I had seen her do several times when talking about Walter. But you also have your own opinion on this matter, because this is not the 19th century. He can't force you to get pregnant. No, Walter would never do that. He really is a very nice man, and I couldn't have hoped for a nicer man to marry. It's not that he forced me to do anything. It's just that I will do anything to make him happy, and this includes the birth of children and their absence and whatever he wants. You really love him that much, don't you? We all see the way you treat him like he's God's gift to women and you've won a prize. That's how you treat him. Honestly, I've never seen anything like this until I met you two. And yet sometimes he seems quite clueless, like he doesn't understand what you do for him. And I hope he never understands, she said, twirling the earring again. I looked at her a little closely because the statement was strange. You don't want him to know how much you love him? Not that. It's hard to explain. Let me ask you a question, Roberta. You are a lawyer, and if I tell you something, can you keep it a secret? Like a lawyer's client secret, which is always talked about? I can if you hire me. Are you having any troubles? Is Walter harming or threatening you? No, nothing like that. I just have one story that I would like to tell someone, just in case, but it can never, and I mean never, happen again. What does it take to hire you? It's pretty simple. Just give me something, like $10 as an advance, and we can make a verbal agreement establishing attorney-client privilege. She grabbed her purse, took out a 20, handed it to me, and smiled. Consider yourself hired. I grew up on Long Island, but not on this part of it, she began. My father was a roofer, and he spent half of what he earned in a bar, so we never had a lot of money. Mom worked as a hairdresser and brought home a few things, but we were definitely on the lower end of the middle class, not like in this area. Because of his drinking and womanizing and their arguments, it is surprising that I made it to the end of high school, but I managed to get into secretarial school. When I met Walter, I was working at a recruitment agency, which meant I was doing short-term assignments. His secretary was going on maternity leave. Her assistant was filling in for her, and they hired me to fill in for her. So I was like the second cast. And when was this? About 10 years ago. I was 24 years old, already tired of partying, and began to look closely at someone with whom I could settle down. I admit I was a bit of a selfish little bitch, thinking about finding myself a wealthy husband for a few years and then moving on with a decent fortune, and Walter seemed to fit the bill perfectly. He was 32 then, 8 years older than me, and even more ignorant and inexperienced than he is now. I didn't consider him rich, but he had his own business, a nice apartment in a good part of the city, and he seemed like an ideal candidate for the role of a starting husband. I started dating him after my time in his office ended and soon moved in with him. About a year later, we got married. Walter was sweet and easygoing, and I thought I could manage him for as long as needed. He was also completely trusting and never talked about a marriage contract. I'm not proud of the fact that I was a gold digger, but I won't sugarcoat it either. And here you are, 10 years later, still happily married. Yes, it is. We had a pretty normal engagement. The only condition of our marriage was that I wanted to have a home, a real home that we could call our own. All my life I lived in rented apartments. We looked around and chose the one we have now. I thought it was a little big, but Walter wanted to have room for children. And although I had no intention of having children, I didn't want to disappoint him before the wedding. The good news for me was that he didn't. Even blink an eye when he found out the price and included me in the contract without any problems. However, shortly before the wedding, one event occurred to which I did not attach any significance. But later I realized that it was perhaps the most significant event in my life. And what was that? A few weeks after we got engaged, Walter said he wanted us to have dinner with an old high school friend of his. We went to a little restaurant I'd never been to in Little Italy, one of those mom-and-pop places, but pretty upscale. When we entered the restaurant, there was a strange feeling as if we had walked into someone's home and not into a public place, and we were not welcome there. Walter exchanged a few words with the head waiter, told him who we were meeting, and everything changed. We were shown to the best table, and within 5 minutes the owner came up to us with a bottle of the best wine as a gift. After that, the service was simply amazing. 2 waiters were constantly nearby, and barely we had time to blink before they were at the table. We had eaten almost all of dinner, and Walter's friend still had not appeared, when 2 large men came in and seemed to look around the entire restaurant. One of them left, and the other took a place a little behind us. Then the first one returned with 2 other men, one of whom was very well dressed and about Walter's age, and the other much older. Walter stood up, hugged them both, and introduced me to his friend Tony and Tony's grandfather, Salvatore. These 2 were nothing like Walter. I mean, I lived on Long Island all my life, and these 2 were deeply connected. I later asked him about it, but he claimed that he knew nothing, and Tony was just an old school friend. In general, they didn't stay long. The old man made a short toast, and they drank to celebrate the success of our wedding. Tony gave me an early wedding gift, beautiful diamond earrings that I later learned were worth $10,000, and they hugged before leaving. No one came to the wedding, and I didn't see Tony for another 2 years. So, as they say, life went on. Between the wedding worries, moving, buying furniture, and decorating the house, I completely forgot about that dinner. Walter went to work every day, but he never seemed all that ambitious. I asked him several times if he wanted to find new clients and expand the business, but he replied that he preferred what he had. Money was never an issue. I had no idea how much he actually had, but he never objected to what I wanted to buy. So, you have found marital happiness. Let's just say that we have settled into married life. Walter is sweet, kind, gentle, but sometimes a girl wants a little more than tenderness in the bedroom. I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage to Walter yet, at least not until I knew what he was worth. So I knew I had to be careful, but there was a need for something tougher. I wasn't planning on doing anything at home. There were too many annoying people in the area, and the evenings were free, so I joined the gym. I wanted to exercise and keep my body in shape, but I also added a personal trainer. Christopher made me bust my ass, pushing me to my limits in the gym and eventually beyond. He was part Italian, about 1.85 meters tall, and his body was hard as nails. We began a secret affair, meeting at hotels several times a week for a day of fun and games. His endurance was incredible, and he gave me what I was missing. So, you had an affair, Did Walter ever find out about this? No, never. But it all ended very badly, and it never happened again. Oddly enough, Walter had to be away on work for 2 days and a night, so Chris and I decided to get a hotel room for the night. We'd never done this before, usually just hanging out for an hour or two during the day, so it was supposed to be fun for both of us. I don't remember much. I think they both drugged us with something. It's just that some evening we were dragged into a car and taken to a remote warehouse, where several strong men arrived. I know Chris was selling steroids or something, so I assumed it had something to do with it, and I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it didn't look good. You mean you were kidnapped? What's happened? How did you manage to get out, and did Walter find out about it? I noticed that her voice took on a flat, monotone tone as she told me this story, as if she had withdrawn from everything that was happening. This, and the details she shared, were a little unnerving. When the effects of the substances wore off, I found myself tied to a chair. They wrapped an elastic bandage around my arms and legs so that no marks would remain, and my mouth was sealed so that I could not speak. For some reason, they were very careful not to leave any marks on me. Chris, on the other hand, was suspended by his wrists with a rope that was tied somewhere. My chair was opposite him. 2 men came out and roughly tore his clothes off, tearing his shirt around the handcuffs. They spread a large plastic cloth under him and started beating him, over and over again, with large, heavy chains. She paused for a minute and shuddered, and then continued in the same even tone. After a while, Chris stopped screaming. I think he, fortunately, lost consciousness. The people left and came back with 2 huge barrels, into one of which they placed my body lover. I thought, what, the second one for me, and lost consciousness. I sat silently and listened, spellbound. I had never heard such stories before, and even in my worst dreams I did not expect this. After a while, I woke up, still strapped to the chair. There was another chair opposite me, and Walter's friend Tony was sitting in it. He told one of the men to remove the bandage from my mouth and one hand. I just sat there, frozen, and looked at him. He took out a flask from under his coat, poured a drink, and handed it to me. I remember taking a sip and coughing a little. Whatever it was strong, but I needed it. It was cold where we were, and I wasn't dressed very well, but the alcohol warmed me up from the inside. Tony spoke in a smooth, soft voice. Joanna, we'll talk a little, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Can you do this for me, Joanna? If you do, soon we will forget about what happened, and you will be able to return home safe and sound. I nodded silently. Does Walter know about this man you're dating? No, I do not think so. I tried to make sure he never found out. Is there a possibility that you became pregnant from this man? No, I take birth control pills. I'm not ready to have children yet. Does Walter know that you take birth control? No. Do you love your husband, Joanna? Do you think you can make him happy? Yes, I love him, and I know that I can make him happy. I'm really sorry this happened. I just needed... He raised his hand and stopped me. I'm not sure if you know, but your husband is one of the most brilliant people I know. If he had wanted, he could have become a brilliant writer and teacher. He is a genius at laundering money and hiding it from the authorities. At the same time, he has a small office and, it seems, very few clients. These clients include my family, as well as some of our friends and business partners. We also provided his services for a fee to several cartels operating in this country. But despite these abilities, or perhaps because of them, Walter is quite strange. We understand this and just want to see him happy. There are many who want to see him happy, and they are willing to go to great lengths, as you saw today, to make this happen. We think you can help make him happy. I know I can make Walter happy because I love him. Let's not have any secrets between us. I talk to Walter often, and he loves you very much. He sees you as his ideal wife and mother of his children, and I don't want him to be disappointed. We both know that you are a gold digger. But what you didn't know is that Walter has much more gold than you can imagine. But if you try to get it, too many people will be upset, and you won't be able to enjoy a single minute of it. After a while, my companions will return you to the car and make sure you get home safely. Walter doesn't need to know about this. Wait a month for guarantee. Then stop taking birth control pills and give Walter the children he wants. Can you do this for me? Yes. I hope I never see you again, because if I do, you won't leave. There are 1,000 ways you can die, from a car accident to a robbery, and Walter will never know the true reason. Just know that before that you will spend time here in hell. Don't ever give me a reason to talk to you again. Don't ever give me a reason to think that anything you do will make Walter unhappy. We both sat for a while, me too shocked to speak and Joanna perhaps too excited to tell me. Then she finished the story. Walter never knew what happened. I didn't inform him. Every day, I try to please him like my life depends on it, because it does. About a month after that, I received a box in the mail that contained the earrings you see me wearing and a card that said, Tony. I wear them every day to remember. What kind of earrings are these? She took one off and handed it to me. There was a golden, perfect miniature of a 200-liter barrel. She now carries 2 empty barrels on a pallet every day as a reminder of what she should be like. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.